welcome to Book Obsession. I'm Ashley Gunn. Before we get started on the book I actually want to review today, I want to mention another series that this author has written. So Kirsten Osbourne wrote the first series that I read of hers was Brides of Beckham, and that one is like a mail order bride service for the old westerns. It's really cute. I read the first 6 of that, and because I thought that series was cute, I decided to read At the Altar, which is another series she wrote, and this one, Married to Montana, is the one that I read, and this review will be on. The general idea of this book I kind of think is similar to that Married at First Sight, I think is the name of the television show. There is a TV show similar to this. Anyways, the idea is that there's a psychologist, and she finds people that she thinks will make a good relationship. However, they give up on it too soon, and so she feels like if they committed to each other, if they married each other, then their relationship would more, that commitment would keep them together through the hard times. And truthfully, I thought it was clever because she is a psychologist, so you have somebody who the people can go to and get some kind of instruction and help with through those difficult times in their marriage. Anyways, you have a young woman named Savannah, and she decides that she's ready to get married and have children, so she goes to the psychologist, and the psychologist already knows the man ahead of time. They grew up in the same place. His name is Scott. And although they did know each other previously, she does have an 8-hour interview with him. There's a get to know you period with the psychologist before she decides who you're going to be in a relationship with. The bride and groom do not know anything about each other, even their names, before they actually get married. That whole thing I really didn't have a problem with, and I thought could be quite clever. I started having issues with this book quite early. The first thing I didn't love was the fact that as soon as they got married, the man chose where they were going to live and basically everything that happened after the wedding. At least in this relationship it did. I would hope that in another book it went differently, but the way that it happens here is even though she's a school teacher and lives in New York, she is now uprooted and moving to Montana. Now clearly she agreed to that, so I can't really hold it against her. Now up to this point I really didn't have a problem with anything in the book other than the fact that the psychologist only matches Christian people up together. And I wasn't really sure why that needed to be part of the book. My guess is after reading the book, it has something to do with Kristen's fan base and just making sure that they felt comfortable, because it really doesn't matter in the book. My personal opinion is that when they put a religion in the book, it should have a purpose. So I've read Christian books before, and in general, they rely heavily on prayer, on God, God's purpose for their life, living a godly life. That is not what this book is. And so that felt, I don't know, just unnatural in the book. It made me start to wonder as I was reading if that was the way Kristen felt like traditional Christian homes were ran, and so that's why she included that religion. I'm not really sure, but I will tell you that Scott is extremely sexist and chauvinistic throughout the entire book. And I mean, clearly at the end he's going to get better, but for a good 3/4 of the book, he's just a giant pain in the bum. And I point that out because the things that he says, it's very old school. You don't know where it came from. He says it's from watching his parents. It's bizarre. Mainly he thinks that he has basically sex privileges. Because they're married, he has a right to have sex with her. And I mean, they don't call it that, but that is very much what's happening. And so he'll mention, he'd like the opportunity to woo his wife, but he doesn't want to lose the opportunity to have sex with her in the meantime while he's trying to court her. It's odd and forced. And it feels like she has a choice at the very beginning of their relationship. They wait a couple of nights before they sleep together. She's a virgin when they get together. Scott's not, which again, I don't understand the religious aspect if you're not going to have both of them be virgins. None of that fit to me. And then we come to the psychologist. You have these two people who clearly are in a very rough relationship. She wants to work, he wants her to stay home and take care of the babies and feed him. They both want children right away, which is pretty much the only thing they agree on. He's concerned about her being away from the house and how far away she would work, whether or not she'll be home for dinner every night. And mainly, if you can think of a chauvinistic idea, sometimes Scott says it, does it, it's incredible. Anyways, so you have this psychologist who's supposed to be there to help them through these difficult times. And quite frankly, I find some of the things she says to be damaging just in themselves. Honestly, some of the things that she says have got to be the most ridiculous relationship advice I've ever heard. I'm going to read you some of the quotes because I was a little blown away and I felt like you might be too. 1 second, I have to type in my password. Okay, so 61% through the book, and I say 61% of the book because depending on the font size you use, it could be a different page number. So that is for sure where you're going to find it. Let me read this to you. At one point, this is a psychologist talking to Savannah. She says, "What did he say now? Men say some of the most asinine things, don't they?" Clearly, great psychology. Later down in the same page, she says, "Everything that he does is just what I like to call dumb man syndrome." Now, I'm not an expert on psychology. I'm not an expert on relationships, even though I've been with my husband for 13 years. But I am fairly certain that there is no actual thing called dumb man syndrome. And I also find it offensive that if you're in a relationship with a guy who puts dandelions in a root beer bottle and considers it some kind of grand gesture, that has something to do with how all men are. I guarantee you my husband has never done that. Not wanting to be too hard on the book, I still have to mention the fact that later in the book, Savannah's going to find herself pregnant. Mainly the only thing these two people have completely agreed on up to that point is the fact they want children. And when she finds out she's pregnant, she decides that she can't tell Scott right away because of the fact that she wants to know that he loves her for her and not because of the fact that she's going to have children. If that was the way she felt, then she should have started using condoms. I'm not an expert on pregnancy, but I am pretty darn certain that if you use contraceptives, you won't get pregnant. The way that she makes it seem like, well, what would happen if he was just with me for the children? Well, the very first time you two slept together, 2 days after you met, you decided to start trying to have a child. So clearly, that was something that was going to be in the immediate future and you should have figured out beforehand. I got really frustrated with this book very fast, as you can probably tell. Anyways, I want to reiterate the fact that Kirsten Osbourne has written another series, The Brides of Beckham, which I can say, for me at least, I found to be a lot better. And truthfully, I do think that every book has a reader. And I don't like to say a book is bad as much as to say that the book is not for me. Because for somebody out there, you may really honestly love this book, love the series, because somebody's reading it. There is like 5 or 6 books in this series already, so somebody is reading it. I'm just pointing out the fact that it's not for me, or maybe people who think like me. Anyways, with that all being said, if there's another book you like of hers, please comment that down below. I would encourage you guys to try their books, whether it be by Kirsten or other authors. When you find a book you don't like, that doesn't mean that they don't write any books you like. You know, just go ahead and try and find something else and see if there's something else they write that is a little more in your wheelhouse. That being said, if you like this review, go ahead and like it. And if you want my reviews every week, subscribe. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see you again soon.